Hello, everyone. Today we will continue our exploration of where we are in reality by speaking something about the higher fourth and fifth dimensional universes. Today we will take you above the time and space world of the material plane into what the ancients called the worlds beyond. These are the higher dimensions science is now theorizing about, and sometimes calling parallel universes. These worlds are in and around the material plane, but existing at a higher rate of vibration. We will explain and explore these multidimensional realities that we all will pass into upon the death of our material body. Previously, we had talked about the third dimensional universe. Now look at the fourth dimensional universe. Again, we are looking at all this upward as we ascend. We go beyond gross matter to that of psychical substance. The fourth dimensional universe, the psychical planes, is a place much vaster than the material plane. Down here we have the material plane, and above it we have the psychical planes. The material plane includes all the galaxies, all the solar systems, all the stars, all the heavenly bodies in the third dimension. However, the fourth dimension has 7 subdivisions, different levels like bookshelf. These are 7 different psychical planes dividing this world, and they're being divided in terms of levels of vibration, different frequencies, within which are a great number of localities. This fourth dimensional universe is called the astral by some, or the psychical by others. Each of these main 7 planes also have 7 subplanes. Now this means we have a total of 49 different planes of vibration in this universe. It's an enormous world, much greater than we can imagine. But where exactly are all these planes of the fourth dimension residing? Right here. We are in them now. But we only perceive the material world because we only can use the material senses of the third dimension. The third dimension floats, as it were, in the fourth and fifth dimension, which means the psychical, as well as the noetical universe, penetrate and surround the material universe. You know, on Earth, something like 70% of the Earth is water. And so we're not living on the surface of water. And what's left is about 30% of dry land. Yet it's only something like 15% of that 30% that we are actually living on. In other words, we inhabit, at most, 4.5% of the Earth. And we think it's so big, but compared to the psychical plane, it's nothing really. Let's say the psychical plane is the map as big as the wall in the room you're in. The Earth would be a small spot on that map. It's so inconceivably vast. And again, when we talk about our material world, we must remember it's got an etheric double around it. It is invisible like the wind, yet the etheric counterpart of matter is still in the third dimensions. And this etheric world is interpenetrating the material world. Again, the psychical universe is in and around the material universe. But unlike the Earth, every part of the psychical world is occupiable. This makes the vastness of the psychical universe so much greater than the surface of the Earth. As we said, within each of these 7 planes are 7 subplanes. Within each of the subplanes are a great number of different localities. But now there's some difference. In the third dimension, it's a world of space and time. But in the fourth dimension, all that changes and becomes a world of place. When Christ departed the material world, he said, "I am going to prepare a place for you." He was talking about the higher worlds, giving the concept of place and not space. Let's do an example. For right now, you're in your room on the material plane, and you are located at a certain measurable latitude, longitude, and elevation on the planet Earth. That's a space, a spatial point in the third dimension. But your room also gives you a sense of place. It's not just a physical measurement. We have a sense of a place, too. Now, when we have a lovely dream or a bad nightmare, we probably come out of the dream, and if we tell someone, we'll say, "Oh, I was in this place." We refer to our dream experiences as occurring in a place. When you say that, you're saying the real truth. Because our dreams are occurring in the psychical world, the world of place. Daskalos adamantly declared, "There are no such things as dreams. These are real experiences you are having in the psychical world." The trouble is we only remember fragments of our experiences there. And we bring those memories back, those dream memories back to our waking state, somewhat jumbled, which makes us feel that they're not real. And even if you remember a lot about a dream, you're still only bringing back memories that are maybe represents 2% of everything that really occurred there while your body was sleeping on the bed. The material world is three-dimensional. Obviously, as you know, this means everything existing in the three-dimensional world has a length, a measurable width, and a measurable depth. In the third dimension, no two material things can occupy the same space. But in the psychical planes, many objects can be in the exact same locality without mixing up. This is due to the different vibrational rates. Just like with our psychical bodies. When we're in a room with others, we're very close. Our psychical bodies are touching, but they're not mixing up, and they're certainly not bouncing off each other. And this is only because they are vibrating at different frequencies. The psychical world is a world of vibrations. When we cross over, we bring the sense of what we knew here on Earth to the other side. Let's go through what happens to, let's call them an earthbound person who's so attached to materiality, so attached that they never considered or studied anything other than that. They don't know about life after the death of their material body. And they have become so attached to people, places, and things that they greatly fear death, not knowing that death just means changing places from the third dimension to the fourth. They are afraid because they can't imagine life beyond Earth and the things and people they knew on Earth. So they hang on and they try to resist the natural transition between these dimensions. Their strong attachments binds them to the lower vibrations of Earth for a time. So with the death of only their material body, what happens? Some of them hang around here in the etheric counterpart of the planet. That's one example of the ghost that people talk about. But most accounts of ghosts are only about elementals from people, human elementals that have become attached to other people and places and things. So this earthbound person tries to stay here, but the divine plan is for them to transition to the next level, the next dimension. Yet their strong attachments bind them here. And if they know the way, their now dead, decaying material body can help them. You know, in India, they cremate the body. Cremation burns off the etheric double of the material body immediately. However, their self-awareness still exists. And those who know the way, and now I'm talking about black magicians, are able to use their dead material body as a kind of anchor to keep themselves in this dimension. They just stubbornly resist the natural pull that transitions the departed into higher planes of existence. They are attached to their houses, people, and things they knew on Earth, things they owned. They can even hang out in the etheric double of their own house they lived in before their material body dies. But this is very disturbing to them. For such an earthbound person, this puts them in great confusion. Why? Because now they pass right through the walls and doors because their etheric body is much higher vibration than material things. They will reach for the doorknob and their hand goes right through the doorknob. They may see someone and start talking to them, and that person has no idea that they are there, and they don't respond. And this makes the departed really anxious and uncertain. Now, when an ordinary person dies, the archangels try to usher them across to higher world. But if their will is so strong and attached, the archangel will not override their free will. Free will is the first gift given from God to us, and no archangel or even a wise person will deprive others of this great gift of free will. Certain departed personalities create these conditions, and they can remain in the etheric counterpart of Earth for a time. But how long? Well, they can't stay very long. They can stay for a while, but they can't stay too long because it's the divine plan that after death of their material body, they are to transition to higher states of life. So after a while, the earthbound person attached to someplace will start to feel they just don't belong here, because they don't. And slowly they let go of their attachments and transition into the fourth dimensional psychical planes of existence. It's a little bit like swimming next to a waterfall. If you're a good swimmer, you can swim in front of the waterfall for a while, but the pull will definitely take you over eventually. When these kind of people do finally make the transition, they end up in the lower psychical planes where they just recreate everything they knew on Earth. So on those lower planes, you will see them. Now, when I say lower planes, I mean the lower 14 planes, which are the first two main psychical planes, each with its 7 subdivisions. That makes 14 lower planes. Here you will see them in driving cars, killing animals, cooking, eating, having sex, all the things they knew on Earth. But all of this is only occurring in their personal psychical shell. However, in the higher planes, all that kind of thing stops and starts to disappear, and eventually goes away from us. A typical person who does not have a strong earthly attachment, after the death of their material body, the Archangel Michael escorts their personality over to the other side. But the first thing that happens is the etheric silver cord that connects your material body with your etheric body and higher bodies gets cut. And it's done by the Archangel Raphael. And then Michael escorts the personality to the very psychical plane that person is most in harmony with. This is God's mercy. After the death of a material body, there is no judging God or archangel that delivers the departed into a paradise or hell. It's the vibration of that person that attracts them to a psychical plane or subplane they are most in harmony with. And of course, a person's vibrations have been created by the way that person thought, felt, and behaved while on Earth. Now, after a period of rest, the departed continue on with their same life. They have the same appearance of their psychical body as they do the material body. Yet it's a more refined, better version of the material body they left behind. Life there is just the continuation of their consciousness, but at a higher level of existence. And the average person will usually find them in the house that they love the most. It may not be the last house they lived in, or it could be, but sometimes you'll see them in a house they had earlier in their life. And it's just because of the mercy of God. You end up in a place you feel most comfortable and love the most. Again, God's mercy is everywhere. And in that house will be every single thing they knew on Earth in their own material house. Everything. They will open a drawer and they will see exactly the same things as they saw on Earth. However, if they had something in their physical house that they didn't like, it won't be there. Because by our thoughts, will, and wishes in this world, we change our conditions. Now, even if you had a tattoo on your body, it would be there on your psychical body. But if you didn't like that tattoo, it wouldn't be there. It's quite interesting in that regard. But even in the material world, if we don't like a tattoo on our body, we can go to a plastic surgeon, pay money, and go through an operation to have it removed. It takes time and money. But in psychical world, it's just a strong desire, and thought changes things immediately. So we have everything in our house, even our pets. Your pets will be there because you bring the elemental of it with you. So the old adage that says you can't take it with you is true, but you don't really have to because it's already there. So what about a really advanced person when they cross over? Christ said to his disciples,
some of you will not taste death.
But clearly their body died, so what is he talking about? It just means they will cross over without a break in consciousness that happens with ordinary people. These ones will pass into the other dimensions consciously, automatically finding themselves on a higher plane. Dasglos reported that 80 to 90% of the people passing over lose consciousness during the change we call death. They fall into a sleep slumber. And if your life was particularly difficult on earth, you'll have a longer rest. And during this sweet slumber is when we get the life review administrated by our guardian angel. Again, when you first cross over, the archangels put you into a state of sleep to allow your coarser vibrations you developed on earth to quiet down before proceeding in the psychical world. It is during this time when you're more receptive, more permeable to understanding the real truth contained in your life review that your guardian is reflecting to you. If you had a very traumatic life on earth, you could stay in this state for 40 days. But then when you wake up, all those harsh vibrations are dispelled and you can begin anew, unencumbered in the psychical world. Just like Earth, everything in the psychical planes has its etheric double. And the etheric double of the material world touches the etheric double of the psychic world. And this is how you pass from one world to the other. There is no void between them. The etheric doubles are the connecting links between the worlds as well as our body. But if departed, like I said, have a lot of attachments, they just will stay in the lower part of the etheric world, the counterpart of the material world, as long as they can. Each of the planes and subplanes has a more refined vibration than the plane or subplane below it. And we can see in the psychic world not just the plants and animals we currently know on Earth, but even animals that have become extinct on Earth can be seen there. The psychical world is a world of place, and there are different laws. The prime law that governs the psychical world is the law of attraction, and its corollary, the law of repulsion. Really, it's one law, two sides of the same coin. One law, two different aspects. This means whatever you love will be in your psychical shell world, and whatever you didn't love will be repelled from you. But what about other people? The people we knew and loved on Earth will be with us in our psychical shell. The elemental we create of others we loved and like being around will be with us, just as we knew them to be. We will dress those elementals with the sentiments and notions we had about that person while living on Earth with them. However, the life of those elementals come from the inner self of the real person. The problem is we live in a shell of our own perceptions, feelings, desires, and thoughts, even on Earth. And we take that with us. Whatever we see, say, or whatever we think or feel or do creates elementals which come to compose and color, and obscure really, our shell in this world and the next world. So upon passing over, all our elementals precipitate out and manifest, materialize as people, places, and things that we perceive in our shell. Now in the psychic world, most people see only what's in their little shell they have unknowingly created. They do not really perceive the world around them. They could see the real psychic world, but most do not because they're so entangled with their own thoughts, feelings, and interests. But this is what's happening on Earth, too. We are doing this right here and now. It's like the old saying goes, if a pickpocket meets a saint, all he sees are his pockets. Dasglos tells a great story that happened in Cyprus. There was this hotel in the Troodos Mountains. He had a friend who was a common worker, and he had to work all year long, very hard, just to afford 2 weeks vacation at this hotel. One day, the fellow tells Dasglos he's going to the hotel. The friend goes to the hotel, and he has a 2-week stay there. But when he comes back, Dasglos asks, "How was it?" The fellow answers, "Oh, it was a paradise. I opened the door the first morning. I went out on the balcony. I could hear the creek running, and the birds were chirping. The sunlight was filtering through the tree leaves so lovely. I breathed the fresh, sweet morning air, and it was just like a paradise. But then in a more serious tone, he said, then a gunshot happened, and it disturbed everything. Turned out someone fired a gun in the next room. And it turned out it was a very unhappy multimillionaire who was so rich he could have stayed in that hotel all his life. But he was so miserable in life that he shot himself just to end his suffering. Now, this reveals something really important to us. It's showing us that for the human being, paradises and hells are completely conditional. They're not localities in space. They are psychological states. And you can see this in your own life. In the morning, you can start out and you feel really good and happy, and then something disturbing happens, and you badly react to it. And the next thing you know, you're so troubled you feel like you're in hell. There is no boundary between hells and paradise. You can step easily from one into another because they are a matter of vibration. Lifting our vibrations up, we enter into a conditional paradise. And dropping to very low vibrations, we create a hell for ourselves. In leaving the material plane and entering into the psychical or noetical planes, you are still in the same incarnation. Our time in all three worlds of existence, material, psychical, and noetical, is just one single incarnation. And after a time in these worlds, we enter the noetic state and then reincarnate. Just because your material body dies, you don't stop being you. The very instant you wake up on the other side, you still have the same desires, the same interests, the same way of thinking, the same appearance, and the same name. But you're now in a world of different dimensions. Maybe this is hard to understand, especially since most of us only know the experiences of Earth in time and space. But in the higher world, space is non-existent. There is no spatial distance. What you experience there is a sense of place and the vibrations you are in. For example, if on Earth you're 6 foot or 2 meters tall, how tall will you be on the other side where there is no space? Think about that for a minute. Well, because the laws governing these things are different there, you can feel being inside this entire psychical world. And like we said, it's much greater because this world is inside the Earth, the surface of the Earth, and extends thousands of miles around the Earth. Or you can shrink down and stand on the edge of a flower petal because it's not a matter of spatial size any longer. These are some of the different laws and conditions of this higher world. On Earth, we eventually come to a point where we complete our circle of possibilities for this physical life, and our material body dies. When you leave your material body, it slowly will dissolve unless you cremate it. As it's dissolving slowly, the etheric counterpart of the material body is released, and it takes like 40 days for it to completely dissipate. The old Greeks kept the dead body of their family members in their house with them, and they would light candles around the bodies and through the house, partially because at one level they believed the light of a candle or torch helped metaphorically light the way through the darkness so the departed could find their way back to their eternal home. Actually, the word funeral comes from the Latin word funus, which means torch of light. But Daskalos revealed there was something much, much more important why the Greeks kept these vigils and had candles burning around the dead body for 40 days. The candles placed around the dead body helps burn off the etheric component. Daskalos would tell us that the old world black magicians knew how to find somebody and take their etheric vitality. Take the etheric vitality of their dead body, I'm saying. and it empowered them to do their black magic spells. They had extra energy to create these spells. So the practice of lighting candles helped burn it off quicker. But the being cremated destroys the body and burns off the etheric double right away. It's a little bit like that story of Alexander the Great. The story is he takes his men and go around and conquers far-off places in the world. And when they land on a new continent, Alexander is reported to have burnt all the ships they came in the moment they land. This was done to create enough motivation and resolve in his men to succeed in their new conquest. His men had to survive with the ship burnt. They couldn't even consider the possibility of going back. They had to press onward and survive. And it's sort of like that with cremation of a material body. With cremation, those people that are really attached to Earth have no earthly body vehicle to hang on to and transition more normally, because cremation burnt up their earthly ship, as it were. After completing their circles of possibilities in the psychical planes, then comes the so-called second death that is referred to in St. John's book of Revelation. However, the second death is not painful. It is pleasing. You just feel sleepy, and you again enter into a sweet slumber, and you, as a self-awareness, transfer out and fully into your noetic body to continue your current incarnation in the noetical worlds of existence. The noetical world is also called the mental world by some. The psychical world is the world of emotion, and the noetical world is a world of thought. The noetical is the fifth dimensional universe, where you will continue with your life. You'll still have the same name, ideas, and interests, but hopefully you will have solved your life lessons during your time on Earth and in the psychical worlds. But if you didn't, no worries. You will just reincarnate with these lessons that you did not resolve to work on them again and again until you do solve them. In each incarnation, we return with lessons learned and lessons still to be learned. Sometimes we are so attached to certain undesirable habits and behaviors in life that we do not want to resolve them, preferring to hang on to them. And Christ said, "I will give you the keys to the kingdom of the heavens. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." This means if you hold on to a good or bad habit, it's going to go with you into the other worlds. If you have a bad habit and you break it into earth, it won't go with you into the afterlife and follow you into the next incarnation. This is one of the reasons why we should clean these undesirable things now while still living on earth, because they don't magically disappear at the death of your material body. Death does not change us as a self. It just deprives our self of a material body. No criminal died and instantly became a saint. It doesn't work like that. Like in the psychical world, the noetical world also has 7 planes, each with its 7 subplanes, making 49 in all. The noetical world is vibrating at a higher rate of vibration than the psychic world, which is vibrating at a higher rate of vibration than the material world. Maybe we could think of these worlds like octaves on a piano. Each octave has the same 7 notes in the scale, but they are all vibrating at a higher pitch at each octave. So too the psychical and noetical have the same landscapes, trees, mountains, rivers, seas, as the material world, but they are vibrating at a higher level, which presents them in a more refined substance, psychical substance, or noetical substance. Likewise, our psychical and noetical bodies used in these worlds are composed of a more refined psychical and noetical substance, vibrating at higher rates of vibration. Maybe we could also think of these 3 worlds of existence and our 3 bodies as different states of water. We have the element of water as solid ice, which could be comparable to the material world or material body. Then we have the element of water as liquid, which could correspond to the psychic world and our psychical body. Finally, we have the water element as water vapor or steam, which would be analogous to the noetical world and our noetical body. We have one water element, but in three distinctly different states. And what's the difference between these three states? Only vibrational rates. When enough heat is applied to ice, it raises its vibration and melts the ice into a liquid. When enough heat is applied to a liquid, it raises its vibration and turns into steamy vapors. It is something similar with the three worlds of existence in terms of vibration. These three worlds and our three bodies coexist within and around each other, yet our bodies are independent and can be used by us independently. For example, a material body to be living, it must have a psychical and noetical body connected with it. But with training, we can transfer our self-awareness into our psychical body, leaving our material body behind, and compose ourself only in the psychical body in what we call an out-of-body experience, or what the researchers call the first exomatosis. Exomatosis is a Greek word that just means out-of-body experience, but it means a conscious out-of-body experience. But for that psychical body to be living, it does not need a material body, as in the case of the death of our material body and passing over. However, for the psychical body to be living, it must have the noetical body connected to it. But with even further training, we can transfer our self-awareness out of our psychical body and into our noetical body. This kind of out-of-body experience is called the second exomatosis. Now, in the case of the physical death of our material body, it gets aborted and we pass into the psychical body, never to return to the material body again. This is such a gentle, merciful transition that ordinary people who have not studied these matters do not even realize their material body has died. Then, after our allotted time in the psychical planes, our psychical body is aborted in the so-called second death, and we comfortably pass over into our noetical body to live independently in the noetical planes, never again to return to our psychical body. Then after some time living in the noetical world, in only a noetical body, we complete all the circles of possibilities for this one incarnation and experience the third death. Now we return to the noetic state, resting in our noetic form until it's time for our next incarnation. Thanks for joining us today. In our next episode of Where We Are, we will speak about three distinctive levels of reality and discover the highest and seldom described level of reality and how the lower levels of reality are contained in the higher. We will also trace the first cause of everything, the so-called prima mobilia, and we will trace it from its unmanifested state into manifestation and extending as expressions into the created worlds of existence. And this next episode will complete our look at where we are and prepare us a little better to understand the next part of our journey into the who and what we are. Okay, hope to see you next time.